Hi, I'm Frank Solero. I'm here with Carl Brault, Toby Anderson, and John Fox. If you've been watching our debrief videos over the past half year, you probably know us already. The Service Pack 13 debrief sessions, which we're going to be covering today, based on the dev meetings that we had over the past 2 days. We learned a lot. We had some interesting conversations. And the whole intent of this is to kind of condense it all for you guys in Cliff Notes, and also to add some context around it, not just say this feature is this, but actually talk about, well, what problem is this solving? And one of the things that I thought was most interesting was the introduction of an archive set, like a backup set, but it's specifically for archival of data. This definitely turned into a really interesting conversation. And for those of you that have been around with the product for a long time, prior to OnePass, we had a classic archive agent that would do nothing but archive. And you might be saying, well, we went to OnePass for a reason. Why did we come back to the archive set? There is a reason, and we will talk about this later. But that was one of the most interesting things that I saw, not only in the feature, but the conversation that it actually generated. And that's what's kind of neat about being present in the dev meetings. And we will kind of communicate that to you guys in one of the segments that we do. So to me, that was the most interesting. Carl, what did you find most interesting in Service Pack?
Well, also we've noticed in that Service Pack, yet again, a great deal of efforts was targeted towards the admin console, which I think was really interesting. They've introduced global search, array management, things like that, and we'll discuss about that a little later. But it really, I think that console is now mature enough so that we can comfortably state that it can be used for both deployments, but also day-to-day management of a Commvault environment. So even for new users, new customers, or for existing customers as well.
Don't tell anybody that storage policy, schedule policy, and subclient policies are now in the admin console.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yes, that was part of the interesting conversation, was the existing customer versus new customer. Exactly. And part of our job to say the PS guys are going to want to go and deploy, if they use the admin console in a traditional way, using storage policies instead of plans. We're like, nope. Don't do that. So we will be talking about that in a later segment, but we also will be developing more education materials to better educate the differentiating between a new user versus existing user.
Absolutely.
Toby, how about you?
Well, I thought one of the takeaways is also kind of tied into the admin console is the virtual server agent, or the virtualization space, I should say, is often a tie-on conversation to the admin console. So we saw a lot of new features that were introduced here related to virtualization, but a couple of things that we also saw that weren't necessarily console-based were things like the ability to run commands from the PowerShell. And we also have new integration with this thing called ServiceNow. So giving customers the ability to accomplish the same tasks, whichever console or interface they want to use, they can now do that, particularly in the virtualization space. Another piece I thought was interesting was a good conversation around cloud sizing, and we're going to cover that in another segment.
Sounds great. And it's nice with particularly with the PowerShell and all of these different things, is we are giving the customer the option and not forcing them down a specific path. So it's really interesting. And it's just kind of a testament of development listening to what the customers want. And I think that's a really good thing.
Right. We have people that wear a lot of hats. Administrators aren't just backup administrators these days. Some folks are also the virtualization administrator, the storage administrator, the network administrator, and they may not be aware of all of the different things that you can do in the console, but they're very familiar with their native tools and scripting and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So this is another way that we can get tied in, make it easier and simpler for folks to do their day-to-day tasks and just do what they want to do in terms of data protection.
Excellent. Mr. Fox, how about you?
Very interesting couple days in the development sessions. A few things that I found of the most interest. Of course, everyone's going to say admin console, admin console, admin console. And the nice thing is that we're not just talking about bringing parity to the admin console. We're talking about also introducing a lot of new exciting functionality in the console, so admin console. So the one which I think is going to be a huge topic in multiple sessions that multiple people are going to talk about is the whole global search. But the one part of the global search, of course, I'm biased in virtual cloud, was the VM indexing as well, or excuse me, the VM analytics, which is, in my opinion, it's great. It's taking it a step further and saying I have these instances or these VMs running here and I'm protecting them. But of course, being able to look inside these, what do I have? How much do I have it? Where is it? And telling you more about your data, file types, what's been deleted, what's been added, really giving you a lot of insight into those files and folders. The other bit is where we're continuing to blur the line of the cloud buckets. And what do I mean by that? Is we break it down to infrastructure as a service. I have my machines, I have my platform as a service, my databases, my software as a service, or even cloud storage. And those lines are getting grayer and grayer and grayer, not just on a Commvault side, but just even a customer side. And what do I mean by that? Is in terms of a database in the cloud, the customers have a lot of flexibility in how they implement this. They could install it in a VM. They could leverage one of the database offerings. So some of the exciting stuff I saw there was in Service Pack 13 was us, extending support into some of the Oracle database offerings running within the cloud. Mm-hmm. And then us taking our existing support with Amazon relational databases, where we could, snap point in time and replicate those, but now being able to extract those and bring them back home, send them off to longer retention or storage, or, whether move it around cloud providers. So a lot of interesting things to discuss later.
Yeah, and that specific thing, and we're talking about that, pulling that database out of the cloud more for compliance reason, and that ties in with other conversations like around O365, giving people mobility to not be locked into a particular vendor, but also the idea of being able to preserve that data outside of their cloud provider for compliance reasons. I think that is really where Commvault's differentiating himself specifically in the cloud space, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And it's difficult for us to keep up with it. So we're sure whoever's viewing these videos, it's difficult for you guys to keep up with it too. So we'll continue to do this as much as we can. So a couple of things. We're going to continue doing these. Please provide feedback. Let us know that you're watching these, that we're not just making these for our own self-consumption. If you have any questions or comments, send them to contentmanagement@commvault.com and let us know how we're doing. So this is the intro. We will now dive into these various topics, try to keep the videos as short as possible. Enjoy watching.